Men aren't approaching women anymore. And before anyone rushes to turn this into blame or nostalgia, let's slow down and actually understand what's happening beneath the surface. Because what looks like disinterest is not indifference. What looks like fear is not weakness. And what looks like confusion on one side is actually the collision of two completely different emotional realities. There was a time when approaching was simple, not easy, but simple. A man saw a woman, felt something, gathered courage, and took a step forward. Rejection hurt, yes, but it was clean. Today, the same step feels loaded with consequences, interpretations, and invisible judgments. The emotional cost has gone up, the rules have become unclear, and the reward feels uncertain. So men pause, and women, watching this pause, feel confused, unseen, and often begin to question their own worth. Let's talk about the modern man first, because his silence is not accidental. He is growing up in a world where every move is dissected. He's told to be confident but not assertive, expressive but not intense, interested but not intrusive. He is warned constantly about being too much or misunderstood. So instead of acting on impulse, he overthinks. He asks himself questions his father never had to ask. Is she just being polite? Will this be seen as disrespectful? What if I'm labeled something I'm not? The fear is not rejection alone. It's reputational damage, public humiliation, or being reduced to a villain in a story he didn't know he was part of. So he waits for signals, clear signals. But here's the problem. Those signals are rare, subtle, or intentionally hidden. Now, from the woman's side, the story feels completely different. She's been told that if a man is interested, he will show it. She's been told that masculine energy pursues, that confidence moves forward. So when no one approaches, she doesn't think times have changed. She thinks, something must be wrong with me. She starts to overanalyze her appearance, her softness, her femininity. She watches men scroll, watch, like, but never speak. Attention without intention becomes exhausting. It creates a strange emotional limbo where validation exists, but desire feels hollow, and confusion grows because the old rules no longer apply, but no one sat her down and explained the new ones. What makes this gap wider is that both sides are hurting quietly. Men feel rejected before they even try. Women feel rejected without being approached. Both feel invisible, but for opposite reasons. Men retreat because they don't feel safe expressing desire. Women retreat because they don't feel chosen. And in the middle of this silence, resentment quietly builds. Women start saying men are weak, passive, uninterested. Men start saying women are unapproachable, entitled, or impossible to please. But neither of these stories is fully true. They're emotional defenses created to protect bruised egos and unmet needs. Another layer to this confusion is the illusion of options. Social media has changed the psychology of attraction. Men see endless faces, endless beauty, endless possibility, and paradoxically, it makes commitment and initiation harder, not easier. Why risk rejection when there's dopamine available without effort? Why approach when attention can be consumed passively? For women, this same illusion creates the opposite pain. They receive likes, views, and messages that go nowhere. Quantity without quality. Attention without courage. It feels like being surrounded but still alone. And over time, this erodes trust in genuine connection. There's also a deep misunderstanding about strength. Many women still associate strength with pursuit and decisiveness, while many men are redefining strength as restraint and self-protection. Men are learning to walk away early, to avoid emotional exposure, to choose peace over risk. From their perspective, this is growth. From a woman's perspective, it looks like emotional absence. She doesn't see the internal battle, the self-control, the fear of being misjudged. She only sees the silence. And silence is loud. Silence creates stories. Silence makes women wonder why they're dressing up for no one, why they're softening their edges without response. It makes them question whether love is even something men want anymore. Meanwhile, men are quietly questioning whether love is worth the vulnerability it demands. They don't feel celebrated for trying. They feel scrutinized. So they withdraw, convincing themselves that focusing on work, self-improvement, or isolation is safer than risking emotional chaos. What's tragic is that both sides want the same thing: connection, reassurance, to feel chosen without having to beg. But pride, fear, and outdated expectations block the path. Women wait to be approached because they want to feel desired. Men wait for unmistakable permission because they want to feel safe. And so nothing happens, not because attraction is gone, but because courage has been replaced by caution. This is why women feel confused, not because men are incapable, but because men are tired of being wrong. Wrong timing, wrong words, wrong energy. They don't want to guess anymore. They want clarity in a world that thrives on ambiguity. And until that clarity exists, many will choose distance over desire. And yet, something important must be said. Attraction has never been about perfection. It has always been about presence. Real connection doesn't come from perfect signals or flawless approaches. It comes from two people willing to tolerate discomfort for the possibility of something real. When men stop approaching entirely, they don't just protect themselves, they also deprive women of the chance to feel chosen. And when women hide behind silence, waiting to be pursued, they unintentionally reinforce the fear that men already carry. This isn't about going back to old rules or forcing new ones. It's about understanding that the emotional climate has changed. Men need to feel that their interest won't be punished. Women need to feel that their openness won't be ignored. Somewhere between fear and desire, there is a middle ground where honesty lives. But it requires both sides to let go of rigid expectations and meet each other as humans, not roles. Until then, men will keep walking past women they find beautiful, convincing themselves it's not worth the risk. And women will keep wondering why the room feels empty, even when it's full. And this emotional distance doesn't just affect dating, it quietly reshapes identity. Men begin to detach from their natural instinct to initiate, to lead emotionally, to risk embarrassment for connection. Over time, that instinct doesn't disappear, it numbs. When a man suppresses desire repeatedly, he starts confusing self-control with self-denial. He tells himself he's evolved, unbothered, focused. But underneath that calm exterior is often unresolved longing. Not for sex, not even for romance necessarily, but for reciprocation without danger, for being welcomed instead of tolerated, for feeling that his presence adds value rather than creates suspicion. Women, on the other hand, internalize the absence differently. When no one approaches, it doesn't feel neutral. It feels personal. It feels like invisibility. Even the most confident woman can't fully escape the quiet question, if I'm not being chosen, am I still desirable? And when this happens repeatedly, she doesn't just question men, she questions herself. Her softness hardens, her warmth becomes guarded, and her openness turns strategic. She starts performing confidence instead of feeling secure. And that performance, while powerful on the surface, often creates even more distance underneath. What's rarely acknowledged is how much both sides are performing now. Men perform indifference, women perform self-sufficiency. Both are coping mechanisms, both are protective layers, and both slowly kill intimacy. Because intimacy requires exposure, and exposure feels unsafe in a culture obsessed with judgment, screenshots, labels, and instant conclusions. There's also a quiet grief here, the loss of romantic innocence. Approaching used to be clumsy, imperfect, human. Now it feels transactional or risky. Men feel like they need a strategy, a script, proof of interest before even saying hello. Women feel like they need to manage perception before expressing curiosity. Spontaneity dies under this pressure, and when spontaneity dies, chemistry struggles to survive. Another uncomfortable truth is that many men no longer feel needed emotionally. They see women being told they don't need men, that independence is strength, that vulnerability is optional. While empowerment is important, the unintended message some men receive is, your presence is unnecessary unless you're exceptional. So average, well-meaning men opt out before they even try. Not because they lack desire, but because they don't see a place for it. Women, meanwhile, aren't craving dependence. They're craving intention. They don't want saving, they want sincerity. But intention is invisible when men stay silent. So women start interpreting silence as lack of interest, not as fear. And that misunderstanding slowly turns empathy into frustration. This is where confusion deepens. Women start asking why emotional labor has shifted entirely onto them, why they must initiate clarity, define situationships, ask uncomfortable questions. Men start asking why expressing interest feels like stepping into a courtroom. Both feel like they're giving more than they're receiving, and both feel misunderstood. And in this misunderstanding, something vital gets lost: polarity. Not dominance, not submission, but energetic contrast. The dance of curiosity and courage, softness and direction. When both sides wait, nothing moves. When both sides protect, nothing grows. Desire doesn't thrive in safety alone. It needs a little risk, a little uncertainty, a little bravery. What we're witnessing isn't the death of romance. It's a pause, a recalibration. Men are reassessing how to show interest without being punished for it. Women are reassessing how to remain open without feeling foolish. The confusion exists because the transition is incomplete. Old expectations no longer work, but new emotional agreements haven't been clearly formed. And until they are, attraction will continue to exist quietly, in glances that never turn into conversations, in feelings that never turn into words, in moments that pass without being claimed. And in this quiet space, opportunity hides. Men who learn to approach with respect, clarity, and humility will stand out, not because they're perfect, but because they're willing to be visible when so many others choose to hide. Women who learn to receive without judgment, to signal interest without fear of misinterpretation, will experience connection on a level that feels both rare and exhilarating. The problem isn't that desire is gone, it's that fear has become louder than curiosity. And fear, left unchecked, creates a vacuum where misunderstanding grows faster than communication. There's also a subtle shift in what attraction even means now. It's no longer just about physical appeal or social charm. Emotional intelligence, boundary awareness, and the courage to express oneself authentically have become the unseen currency of connection. Men are hesitant not because they don't notice beauty, but because they are hyper-aware of social repercussions. Women are cautious not because they are unkind, but because they are protecting their own emotional energy. Both are adapting, but adaptation looks like withdrawal to the outside observer. Meanwhile, the stories we tell ourselves about how men should behave and how women should respond are outdated. They assume linearity, predictability, and clarity that no longer exists. Men are no longer automatically rewarded for boldness. They are rewarded for judgment, restraint, and social intelligence. Women are no longer automatically approached. They are rewarded for openness, subtlety, and perceptiveness. And when the rules change, but expectations remain, confusion becomes inevitable. In this environment, subtle miscommunication compounds. A look that might have been a clear invitation in the past is now scrutinized, second-guessed, or dismissed. A compliment that could have sparked a connection is now measured against invisible boundaries. Intentions are hidden under layers of self-protection, and vulnerability is rationed like precious currency. Every step forward feels heavier, every advance feels riskier, and the natural spontaneity that once defined attraction becomes almost impossible to reclaim. And yet, attraction is resilient. It doesn't disappear, it adapts. Men who are willing to risk embarrassment, who can approach without entitlement and without expectation, begin to rewrite the story. Women who are willing to meet signals with curiosity rather than suspicion, who allow space for imperfection, begin to transform confusion into clarity. But this requires patience. It requires awareness. It requires understanding that hesitation is not rejection and caution is not disinterest. The paradox is clear. The very fear that keeps men from approaching is the same fear that makes them deeply desirable when they finally act. The very confusion that women feel is the same tension that sharpens their intuition, teaches them patience, and ultimately prepares them for authentic connection. Both sides are learning a new emotional language, one that demands empathy, courage, and a willingness to tolerate discomfort for the possibility of meaningful connection. And while the room may feel quiet, and while glances may pass unspoken, the potential for attraction is still alive. It thrives in honesty, in clarity, in small, courageous steps. The men who approach thoughtfully and the women who signal openly are not breaking rules, they are rewriting them. And in that rewriting, confusion transforms into understanding, fear transforms into trust, and hesitation transforms into presence. The challenge is ongoing, but the opportunity is immense, because when courage and curiosity meet, silence is broken, and the space that once felt empty becomes electric. The pause between desire and expression, once filled with fear and doubt, now becomes the stage where real connection is born. Men aren't approaching women as often as before, yes, but the ones who do are not just approaching. They are claiming authenticity, embracing vulnerability, and stepping into a world that rewards intention over instinct, depth over display, and honesty over performance. Women who respond to these men are not just receiving, they are participating in a new dynamic, a conscious choice to engage where confusion once reigned, to create clarity where fear once dominated, and to transform silence into dialogue. The modern emotional landscape is complex, layered, and intimidating, but it is not impossible. It is not cold, it is alive with possibility, waiting for those willing to navigate uncertainty with courage, empathy, and clarity. In this space, both men and women have the chance to rewrite the rules, reclaim desire, and experience connection that is deep, deliberate, and profoundly human. The truth is simple but powerful. Connection has never been about perfection, timing, or fear. It has always been about courage. Men, the ones who step forward despite doubt, despite judgment, despite risk, will create moments that matter. Women, the ones who allow themselves to receive without overthinking, without suspicion, without guarding every emotion, will experience a depth of connection they didn't think possible. Silence and confusion will always exist, but they do not define the possibility of love, attraction, or intimacy. What defines it is action. What defines it is presence. What defines it is the willingness to be seen, to be human, and to honor the delicate dance between desire and vulnerability. Step forward, signal openly, speak honestly, and never let fear or confusion steal the chance to feel chosen and to choose in return. Because the moment courage meets curiosity, confusion dissolves, desire awakens, and connection transforms into something unforgettable.